Alright boys, welcome back to another video. So today I'm going to be talking about the biggest mistakes beginner agencies make in OFM. So this is mainly just, sort of from my own experience, like what I've done in the past and what I see, a lot of people do. There's not a lot of things, but I feel like these are the things that are most important. So first of all is spending too much time on things that are not important, right? So one thing that a lot of people do, if they just go into OFM, is, or even in general, but mainly beginners, is when they're just making the agency, they'll spend literally a week, 2 weeks, 3 weeks, just thinking of a name, just like trying to make the logo for an agency, making a website, all of that stuff. You know, a website doesn't even matter that much. We personally literally don't have a website. Our website got taken down like last year, and we literally have not made one since. All you need is a nice and simple name for your agency that should literally take you honestly a few minutes. Obviously, I get some people aren't as creative, so it might take a bit longer. But it should not take you more than a day just to think of a name. Obviously, logo, nice and simple as well. Once again, shouldn't take you long. If you're really bad at doing these type of things, just pay someone. Like you can literally find someone for $5, $10 to make you a logo. And then the agency page obviously would be helpful as well. And that's literally what you need. And yeah, and same goes for like making your outreach accounts like a personal account or fake model account, all that stuff. Obviously you want to make sure they look good, but don't put weeks into just making an account. Like it literally takes a few hours max to make that. And if it's taking you longer, you're either procrastinating or you're just doing something very wrong, because it should not take you that long. And yeah, obviously this can go for other things as well, like later on, like planning, certain marketing stuff. It shouldn't take you very long to do that. Obviously, you want to make sure the marketing is correct, but there's a difference between planning it correctly and quickly than just, thinking, oh, shall I do Reddit or shall I do Twitter, and not figuring out or not choosing for like multiple days straight. Next thing, which I think a lot of people make the mistake of, which I do understand, because obviously you don't want to lose your first model, but you should never force yourself to work with a client that doesn't care, such puts no effort in. Obviously, once again, there is a bit of a difference between a model that, might have a job or two and really doesn't have a lot of time. Even then, if they don't have a lot of time, you shouldn't be putting you shouldn't even be working with them, because at the end of the day, you're just limiting yourself. But if you got a model who generally just doesn't care, puts no effort into the content, replies really late to you, and when she does, it's like one worded answers, replies, I mean. You know, Even though you're a beginner and you want to learn, which I do understand, but once again, you're also limiting yourself, right? If you're working with someone like that, you won't make a lot of money. Um, Next thing is being scared to invest. Obviously, some people do start with a very low budget, which is possible, by the way, in case you're wondering. If you're completely new to the firm, it is possible to start with a very low budget. But if you do have, a few hundred or a few $1,000s to your name, you should not be scared to invest. Obviously, when you're new to this, making a business in general, it's going to be scary to think, oh, I have to spend, this much money on this and that. But at the end of the day, if it does bring you results, it's going to, obviously be a good return on investment in the long term. And if it doesn't, you will learn from your mistakes. You know that sort of thing might not be a good idea to buy in the future, right? But even little things like buying agency accounts or like buying Instagram accounts or buying followers for them, little things like that are cheap. You should not be, worried about spending money on. Next thing is not outsourcing the little things. As a beginner, and I did this myself, which I think is a very big mistake. You should never be trying to do everything yourself. Obviously, from 0 to like 5K or 10K a month, it's possible to get to like 10K a month literally completely by yourself. But even then, you should still, once you learn something, let's say you do marketing on Reddit. Once you learn Reddit and you think, you feel like you're good enough at it to understand what to do and how to teach someone else, you should straight away try to hire VAs for it, so that you can outsource Reddit, right? Because if you're always doing it, like for example Reddit yourself, you're never going to be able to scale and do more things, because if you try to do everything at once, you're just going to end up getting confused, forgetting to do something, which is what I think a lot of agencies make the mistake of. including myself, like I said, you try to handle all of it by yourself, and then you're gonna be like, oh, I forgot to do this today. I gotta make sure I do it tomorrow when I wake up. But then you do the other things, and then you forget to do that thing again, and you just end up forgetting to do a lot of things, and you just sort of mess up. Your revenue might start to go down, and yeah, it becomes, ends up becoming quite a big problem. Next thing, well, actually, to add on to that as well, this can go for bigger things too. Like I say, the little things are just posting on Reddit and whatnot, but this obviously can be for other things like, you can have team managers later on, right? Like for chatting, you should not always be sat there helping your chats. You should hire someone else to do that for you. Um, but yeah, obviously in the beginner stages, like I said, for example, posting on Reddit, you should always do that by yourself. But as soon as you feel like you've, sort of mastered it, or you understand how the platform works, there's no point keep doing it by yourself. Like you should, outsource that so that you can then move on to, for example, Instagram or TikTok or Twitter, or whatever it might be. Next thing is testing new marketing plans, such niches, stuff like that. Which again, this comes from my own experience. Obviously, if you have a very high quality, good looking model, even with not the best niches, she probably will perform well if she makes good content. Um, but no matter what type of model you have, you should always be testing new things, right? Trying out new niches, trying out different marketing type of content, all of that type of stuff. Because if you always stick to one thing, obviously, yeah, every now and then you might go more viral than the other day, and you might, your revenue might, sort of keep going up, but there will always be a limit. But if you're reaching out to whole different new niches with completely different type of fans, then that's where you can actually make a lot more money. You can go from making 10K or 20K a month to, 2x that or 3x that just because you tried out some different niches, right? So I think it's very important, no matter how, and this really goes for anyone, even if there's someone right now watching this that makes 100K a month already with OFM, this really goes for anyone, like no matter what stage your model is at, I think it's an always good idea to try out different niches and try out different types of content um, for your model. Because like I said, for example, let's say you only stick to one niche, like an ASMR niche on IG Reels. Let's say you're going really well with that, you're making 20K a month, but then that's sort of your limit. If you don't see an increase for a while, that is sort of your limit, and that's where you should be like, okay, this is time to obviously keep doing what I'm doing because it's working, but then also try a different niche for this model to see, how I can really scale her. But yeah, that's pretty much it for the video. If you guys do want more information on OFM, if you're new here, or if you're, like a beginner agency, or even if you're making 20K, 100K a month, I do have a private group which will be in the description, and a free Telegram which will be there as well. So make sure you guys join that. And yeah, see you guys later.